They say, fool me once, shame on you.
Mm.
Fool me twice, shame on me. But they also say, three strikes, you're out.
Yes.
That's exactly what one of my stalwart news agencies left me with this last week. When I was a youngster reading something in the newspaper released by Reuters, it was considered to be serious news back then.
Yeah.
Back in the day, Reuters, Associated Press, and Agence France Presse, and a few others were the ones who fed the news to the newspapers around the world, and the papers would use the information, put their slant on it, and then publish.
Yeah.
It seems over the last few years, Reuters has gone rogue. Around 18 months ago, we did a podcast where we exposed an Italian journalist working for Reuters who claimed to be writing from the front lines of the Ukraine conflict when really he was in Rome enjoying the sunshine and pizza. When the scandal broke, of course, he was fired. Embarrassing for Reuters, right? More recently, a female journalist had her own aneurysm of truth, telling when she quoted a phrase out of a report which was simply not true. This episode involved the US analysis reportedly saying that, open parenthesis, Putin remained committed to capturing all of Ukraine and reclaiming parts of Europe that belonged to the former Soviet Empire, close parenthesis. Always, of course, cited by anonymous sources. So this lady reporter said, anonymous sources said, and then blurted out that bit. Even Tulsi Gabbard, director of national intelligence, called BS on the reporting. Gabbard accused Reuters of publishing absolute lies and propaganda that it was willingly pushing on behalf of warmongers to undermine Donald Trump's efforts to a peace deal in the region and end the Ukrainian conflict.
Yeah.
More recently, Reuters was found doing a written version of the BBC when it was covering a story about a Democrat candidate for California governor, Eric Swalwell. To cut a long story short, so-called journalist Christine Prentice, who works for Reuters, asked a Republican-leaning journalist who had been covering Swalwell for some time for an opinion on a story. The journalist, Joel Gilbert, obliged, returning an email. And Prentice, she decided to edit what he had said. Of course, it took the whole phrase out of the context, and after Gilbert complained, the error was rectified, but only after a few days. And as we all know, nobody wants to read a 5-day-old headline. So the correction was more or less buried with the other internet trash or rubbish, which is left for archivists to find at a later date. But these stories in themselves can or can't be important in themselves. But I now find myself in a position to be able to consider Reuters a serious news agency. I can't find myself, to consider Reuters a serious news agency anymore. It saddens me because, like I said, of all the news agencies out there, it wasn't because it was a British news agency, but Reuters just used to give out the story as it was, without opining nor leaning to one side or another, and certainly not for lying. Press standards are so low these days. There you are.
Well, this is something that I've been considering quite some time. The truthfulness of what I see what we used to read, what we used to. I mean, this was always it. We've had a discussion about. I still love old books, and I'm going to make something here. Okay, old books that somebody's had to do some research, actually write and do, and the same I always thought about print as well. Um, the I mean, yes, the trouble is now we now have 24-hour news, and it's getting the news the quickest, the fastest in. Yeah, it's a game we play as well if we can. Um, and it's yeah, get the news out at 6 p.m. Do a retraction at 10 p.m. if it's proved wrong. But no, it moves so quickly that nobody questions it anymore. But it's integrity. Um, Good journalists used to check everything. I mean, there's always been the case. If you read the Telegraph or read the Guardian, you could read the same story, the same facts, and just a different interpretation. But you were well aware of that. That's a bit different. Yeah, but the facts were still there. This person went to this place, to this place, to this place. They met this person, this person. This was what got said. Okay, what got said? Maybe you can report the words and say this could mean this or it could mean that. Okay, people play on that now. Yes, but I do agree with you now that you read something from established journalistic outlets, and it could quite frankly be written by a 16-year-old in school. Yeah,
That argument I can understand if
yeah,
we were talking about the Daily Mirror,
mm,
but we're not. I'm on about Reuters,
yeah. I'm get to yeah. I mean, Reuters
which
was was a news source that all the others would sometimes go to.
that's
Yes,
that's a that's a raison d'être of Reuters
yeah,
and Associated Press and the other one, Agence France Presse,
yeah,
is that they got the information and
mm,
they fed it out to the newspapers,
yeah,
and the newspapers would do what they wanted with it.
yeah.
Right? That's how it all worked.
Mm. Yes, so
But
buying the services. Yeah,
now it seems that Reuters is edit editions,
yeah,
doing editing stuff for a slant,
yeah.
and it never used to do that.
Well, yes, yes,
Reuters just Reuters just used to say the sky is blue, uh,
yeah,
the grass is green,
yes,
right? And send that out to the newspapers, and then they would say, well, it's a bit cloudy, you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yes. Admittedly, yeah, they had their neutral reporters on the ground who would just report a missile struck here or
What it
this happened.
was, just what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, they're the guys who are paid big bucks to take the risks, put the hard hat on, the helmet on, and yeah,
Not all the Italian guy didn't.
yeah. Well, um, he was probably claiming expense. I imagine he possibly got sacked because he may have been. I mean, I'm a classist person, but yeah, I'm joking here. But yeah, partly, but he's probably claiming expenses for being somewhere else as well. So he was getting his pizza paid for. But I'm not. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, obviously, I'm not saying speculating. I'm joking that these things happen, but um, it is a um it's a different world now. I mean, even when I've been reading things from World War II, that the British members of the British intelligence would go to the newspapers and say, "Can you report this?" And the newspapers would say, "No." Well, why not? Some patriotic no, but we still have our integrity. You can state something to us, and whether or not it's true or not. Yeah. But don't ask us to, if you like, print downright lies. I mean, okay, if you're doing, I know there's this thing about espionage and coding and everything else, and the small ads and things like this. Um, but yes, when I was reading this, there was journalists at the time. They wanted integrity. They wanted to know what was really happening. Um, and it was like one time I was reading that um, it was a time I think with the V1s were being developed or being used by the Germans, and I have a vested interest in this because my grandfather died because of either a V1 or a V2. And the journalist, they actually wanted to report back fake news of where a V1 was supposed to have landed, and fabricate all the story about it and all that to make the Germans think that it either worked or it hadn't worked or something. And the newspaper refused to do it because I said it is blatantly not true. And somebody will read it in the newspaper, they'll go to the site and see we're telling lies anyway. So this thing used to happen. Journalists used to pride themselves on their integrity. And now there does seem to be, I would say, almost a state control, or either that or journalists are just running out of hand, and nobody knows how to control them anymore. They've probably all got the ability to work independently now as well. And editors used to say, this is a load of nonsense. Yeah, can you justify it? And that's the job of an editor. You've given me this story. Where's the receipts? And to say a source, okay, journalists sometimes have to protect their sources, which is understandable. But yes, there should be a degree of credibility with it. I mean, there's now another podcaster. I've watched a couple of newer podcasters, or podcasters have been doing it for years, do what we do slightly differently, more professional journalists, and they will sometimes say a close source, a source close to this person or the royal family or to number 10 told me this. Again, they're protecting it, but you can actually believe that these journalists have a reputation to keep themselves. And
I think if a journalist is being independent and is doing his own podcast, then yes, of course. If he's found to be giving out false information, then he's not going to have very long legs, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Right. But and we all know that newspapers will put their own slant on.
Well, this is what I said: the Guardian, the Telegraph. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But when we're talking about somebody like Reuters, which it's got to be the absolute pinnacle of integrity. I've just cited 3 times when they out and out lied. That doesn't help. That doesn't help anybody. No. Not even newspapers, because newspapers can't even rely on Reuters to give them at least the base of a story.
Well, I mean, this is today, yes, but this is a different today, and I never used to hear this. Oh, this is a narrative. There's people openly now talk about the narrative. They say that the person broke the narrative, and you get shut down, you get cancelled, or you don't get used again. There is something strange going on in the news media, in the media in general, and I won't even say it's if you say the wrong thing in sport now or anything else.
But we're talking about Reuters, sir.
Yeah, I know we're talking about Reuters, but
there's nobody above Reuters to give you the news.
I'd argue they're in a changing world. The one that.
But in which case, then no news source, absolutely no news source is reliable these days. I don't know if it's because Reuters had suffered influence or pressure from the UK government, as Reuters is an English company.
Well, this is what I'm saying. There's a narrative.
But the thing is that if Reuters loses it, then the whole press agencies, news agencies, are going to suffer.
Well, I've thought that for a long time, and I'm sorry, but yeah, in recent times, the BBC was the British bastion of integrity.
But the BBC got their news from Reuters.
Yeah.
There's always got their news from Reuters.
Yeah, but you can't use that as an excuse as a journalist. You source check. Well, because you should be able to turn around if Reuters are someone you're paying to produce something for you, you can turn around to them and saying, "Where's the receipts for this? Where's the evidence? Give me some credible evidence before I run this story, before I pay you for this story." Yeah,
Reuters and the others, the other news agencies are almost like the Bible.
well,
If
evidently not.
if
Yeah.
they sent it to you, it's true.
Well, yes, and again,
We're not talking about, and we're talking about lying in these three cases I've just mentioned.
well, yes, this is the point. This is what I'm saying now. If you're a journalist, if you're the receiving journalist or journalistic organisation with integrity, you will say this doesn't add up. What? Okay, you've named this source. Can you discreetly tell me who this source is? So at least it gives me some credibility.
I just think that Reuters is stepped on the ball one too many. Well, at least with me,
Well,
stepped on the one too many times, and I, I'm finding it difficult now to follow the rest of them.
well, I think you're wise to do that.
But there's nowhere else. There's nowhere else to turn to get accurate news, sir.
Well, okay, but you still have to apply critical thinking to things.
Unless of course I'm there,
Well,
witnessing the bombs.
yeah, I mean, there's another one. You use an independent journalistic organisation that that is about that you sometimes quotes that you have quoted to me. I forgot what it's called. Where they have not quite citizen journalists, but journalists closer on the ground who report to them. And I'm just trying to remember what that one is called. But yes, there's a couple of those now that have proved to be reasonably or very accurate. I mean, we're now living in an age where where you don't have to rely on, I suppose, let's say rely on Reuters. I know what you're saying. Yeah, you could get some information, and maybe if Reuters were reporting it, you thought, yes, that could be credible.